Hello, I'm Cass, and welcome to my mid-year 2026 reading journal flip through. I am ecstatic to be sharing this video with you all in a timely manner. If you know anything about last year, you would know I was so behind in my journal perpetually, and this year I have been so on top of it and having just the best time making spreads, and I am so excited to share them with you all because there's so many spreads in here that I'm so proud of, and I hope that I'm able to give you some inspiration for your own journal or inspire you to maybe start reading journaling as well. It's definitely never too late to start. Even if we are halfway through the year, I think this is the perfect time to start. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start flipping through my journal.
Just like everyone else on the internet, I cannot believe that we're already halfway through the year, and my journal has definitely been filled up, and I'm so excited to finally be switching to a new journal in the second half of the year, and of course sharing with you the flip through of how all of my pages turned out, starting with my cover page. This is something that I would say is like semi-unique to me, but I really hope it eventually catches on. As you can see here, I have just a map as my cover page. I am a fantasy cartographer, so I draw some maps, and I thought, why not incorporate that into my journal, as this was the origin of my map making journey. This is one of my favorite maps to draw every single year just because it's so freeing and casual, and I get to, name things off of my obsessions. Like, you can clearly tell that this is when I started enjoying One Piece. Royal Lands of Isor is just Royal Lands of Rose backwards, and I wanted the compass to kind of match the outer journal. So that's what I did, moving swiftly along to my bookshelf page. This is filling up quite nicely. I am so pleased with the color palette that I have going on here. We have my key up here. So for physical books, it's this like dark pink and this brown. Ebooks, it's that lighter pink, and then audiobooks is this like tannish color, and library books is yellow. Now, I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job at both borrowing books from the library and reading books physically off of my TBR, and I love this library page. I think this is definitely like my favorite library page that I've made thus far, which is quite exciting. It's only up from here, you guys, hopefully. I think I might have to actually create another mini library spread for the rest of the year because, again, we're already halfway through the year, and I don't know if this is enough books to finish out my reading, but regardless, I love it. This next page is another way of just sharing the various books that I've read. I have all of these dots here representing the star rating because one year I drew a bunch of stars and realized, actually, what if I never did that again? It's also a Dutch door, which means it's chopped at the top here, so I just have to decorate one page and I can flip through all of the books that I've read without needing to decorate every single page and repeat the title. And I have a couple more pages empty as well to fill out, so hopefully that will be enough for my reading this year. Moving on to my stats. Going down the line here, we have books read, pages read, books bought, my average star rating of the month, physical books I've read, books I've borrowed from Libby, books I've borrowed from the library, and all of my rereads. I am quite pleased with how my reading is shaping up. Way better than last year. I've had higher months, I've had lower months, but it's significantly better than all of my reading last year. And then I have my release radar here. I think I've actually kept up with all of the new releases, so quite pleased about that. And I cannot wait for the second half of the year because I definitely have some of my most anticipated books coming out, such as Well-Versed and The Last King of Fairy. Very exciting, and I've actually found myself referring to this page a lot more than I did last year as well, which is exactly what I want. Now, my 2026 TBR has not been going too hot, shall we say. The roses that are colored in mark the books that I've read. So 4 out of the 16 books, we're making slow progress. But looking at it, most of these books are giving me fall vibes, so I don't know why I so heavily leaned on the fact that I would need to complete this TBR mainly in the second half of the year. But again, that is later me's problem, and I will of course do my best to complete the TBR. As for my books bought page, I maybe did not leave myself enough room for this either. However, is this a sign that I need to reel in my book buying? Maybe that's not the point. I have bought a lot of manga, which are cheaper than regular books, so we'll just blame that as a factor and not the fact that I've just been out of control lately, but it's fine. I really like how this page looks. I especially love that I have little check marks so I can actually check off the books that I've read after I buy them. That way I can see all the books that I bought in a year and also read in that same year. I just think it's fun to be able to look back and see how on top of things I was. Oh, actually, looking at this, I can actually check off Ship of Destiny here. There we go. A little interactive for you. So look at that, even more on top of it than I previously thought. Moving on to my monthly favorites. This is such a funny variety to me because not all of these books are 5 stars, and then I've had some months where I've really struggled to pick an absolute favorite. Regardless though, I love how this page is turning out. And going with this monthly favorite page, I actually have deeper breakdowns that I have of all the favorites of each month. Just my thoughts, maybe my experiences reading them. There might be spoilers, so I wouldn't dive too deeply into reading my writing. There's nothing too groundbreaking in there. It's mostly teehee, I had a fun time. But I'm excited to fill out the rest of the year. I already have all of the titles prepped and ready to go. And from here, we move on to my first cover page, that being January. And I love this page so much. I honestly was going to add the book covers of all the books that I've read, but I really like how this spread turned out with all of the empty space and just the composition of the title and these stickers from the washi tape shop. So I decided to just leave it be. Another new thing that I started doing this year is making my cover pages after the month is over. That way, when I create the page, I'm able to have all of the titles fit exactly how I want, and it just fills it out in a more satisfying way. And for the beginning of the month, I've started making TBR pages, so I still have that separation, and then I get to go back and create the cover page. So if you see my cover pages looking quite perfect and you're wondering how, that is the reason I make them after the month is over and after all of my reading is over. I did so much more journaling this year than I did last year. If you know anything about last year, my journaling was rough, but this year I was determined to keep up with my journal and create spreads that I haven't made before, one of them being the first read of the year, which was actually One Piece Volume 4. Even though, looking here, I was already 3/4 of the way done with the novel before the year started. I decided to add some panels since it was a manga. My friend and I do journal dates, and that's another reason why I've been so on top of my journal this year. So shout out to my friend Manu for all of our lovely journal dates. In the beginning of this journal, I wasn't really reading much. However, I was watching an ungodly amount of anime, and I still wanted to incorporate some pages into my journal, which is something else worth noting, that my journal is a mixture of reading and anime and life and just anything I want to make a journal page for. I'm making a journal page in my reading journal. So here is my spread for Yona of the Dawn. And then the next anime that I had finished was The Apothecary Diaries. I love this scene so much. It was one of my favorite scenes, and I loved getting to add a little snippet from it. And then the other anime that I watched as well was Jujutsu Kaisen, which was not supposed to be an anime that I thought I would get invested in, but alas, here we are. I had so much fun making these pages, and I definitely will be making more anime-centered pages, but I just haven't watched anime since January. I went on a 3-week binge watching nothing but anime almost every single day, and then I haven't watched a single episode since, but I need to get back to it. So if you have some anime recommendations to get me back into watching anime, please let me know. Then I did end up going to Japan this January. This was my 3rd time going to Japan, and it was so much fun because I actually got to travel with a friend, which was so delightful. And then, figure the odds, you guys. It was absolutely crazy. My friend from Alaska, who I traveled to Japan with 3 years ago, was 20 minutes down the road from where we were staying, and we actually ended up meeting up for dinner, which was so amazing. I had such a delightful time, and I also went to a map museum, which, as a fantasy cartographer, I was absolutely living for, you guys. Beautiful, beautiful country, and I cannot wait to visit once again. Maybe later this year, maybe next year. I don't know. I just can't stay away from Japan, you guys. Moving on to February. I love how fun this page turned out. These stickers are so cute, and I just love the brightness of the green. And you'll notice actually on every single page, I started doing this ripped edge to differentiate all of the months. I just thought it was a fun little touch and something that I will continue to do throughout all of the months. It's just a common denominator, I guess, for this year of doing this like ripped page on the side. Moving on to the first Ren Fair of the year, which is Bay Area Ren Fest, one that I really wanted to go to ever since I read the Well Met series, and they mentioned this fair, and I'm like, I live in Florida. And I actually got to take one of my friends who had never been before, which is always a delightful time. I love going with people who've never been to the Ren Fair prior. Then I had my first ever artist alley as a seller, which was so fun. I went ahead and I stuck my badge in here and added some stickers that they actually gave us. This is a note my friend gave me, and then one of my friends also stopped by to support me, and it was amazing experience, and one that I'm so lucky to have been able to do. It felt like the perfect next step for my art business, so hopefully I'll be able to return to SwampCon again next year. And then we have my Game of Thrones pages. I've only made 2, so you'll see the other one later on in the journal, obviously when I read the book, but I just wanted to make a page to document the fact that I was buddy reading it with Manu, and the fact that A Game of Thrones is also such an iconic series. Why not also share my thoughts on each of the books as well? And I love the composition of how this page turned out, and you'll see it repeated throughout the rest of the series, because I like this format a lot. You'll notice that a lot throughout my journal, that if I like a format, you're gonna see it a bunch, because I stick with what I know, you guys. Then we have my first 5-star read of the year, not counting mangas, and that was Daisy Jones and the Six. Now, this isn't purposely not filled in. I wanted to have my book thoughts on this side, and then my TV show thoughts on this side. And I haven't finished watching the TV series. I have a singular episode left. I need to get on that, and then I can properly write all of my thoughts. But yes, it's been since February and I have not finished watching the series. But it's fine, we'll get around to it. I loved Daisy Jones and I love this page so much. The fact that I had some like musical washi tape was so perfect and fit so well. Then we move on to March, which is a very colorful and sparkly month, filled with many memories, as it was my birthday month and my parents actually flew over for my birthday, so I got to hang out with them since I actually had a gymnastics competition on my actual birthday. So we celebrated throughout the week, which was amazing. I loved getting to celebrate my birthday pretty much every day for a week while they were here. And then, like I said, we have my first gymnastics competition. I used to compete as a kid, and it's been a decade since competing, and we have an entire adult team. We're called the Flip Flops, and I like making journal pages for each of my competitions, and this being the first one back. This is actually a sticker I've had since my childhood, and I was so delighted to finally be able to incorporate it into my journal, because I actually used to scrapbook as a kid. So I had a bunch of old stickers, and even this paper, this sparkly paper, was also saved from when I was a child. And then we have another gymnastics competition, and then shortly followed thereafter, another gymnastics competition. And then we have my page for Anne of Green Gables, which hands down has been one of my favorite books of the year so far. And this I actually learned how to cross stitch this A for this page. Mind you, not very well. I think the batting, or like the sheet that you cross stitch on, was too small. Like the holes are too close together. I should have gotten a different sized fabric to cross stitch on, but alas, lesson learned. It also took me like 3 hours just to cross stitch that single A. But I really like how it looks, so hopefully in the future I will dive back into cross-stitching, since I have all the supplies necessary, as long as I buy a different fabric. Honestly, this being cross-stitch, it's not that bulky, and I would definitely incorporate it into future pages. And then we have my first quarter wrap-up, which is just an overview of all of the books that I read in the year. They're not arranged in any particular order, mostly just color order to make them aesthetic. And then we have a short wrap-up of how many books I read in the first quarter, which was 28, and how many pages I read, which was 9,394 pages, and then a list of all of the 5-star reads that I discovered that were new reads to me. I love this page, and again, you'll notice I like a format, and I will repeat said format, especially for the quarters, and I have different mountain washi tape that matches each season. So how perfect is that? Moving on to April, which might be one of my favorite cover pages that I've made thus far. I love the gold and I love these stickers so much. And I really wish I could get my hands on more of them, but I did pick them up in Japan. And then we have the second artist alley that I ever did. Once again, putting my badge in here, as well as incorporating the ribbon of my lanyard in here. I thought that it was so cool, so I decided to stick it in. But again, it does make my journal quite bulky, but I personally don't mind until like the later months, and then it gets a little annoying. We have a paperclip shoved in my journal for some reason. Don't mind that. Another gymnastics competition, and then we have a page dedicated to a 24-hour readathon that I did in the spring. I want to do quarterly 24-hour readathons, and I wanted to make this page very spring-like, and I feel like I did not succeed in that fact, and this is probably one of my least favorite pages in my journal. But you know what? The memory was documented. I think I needed to incorporate book covers, if we're being honest. That, or I needed a little bit more color added to the page. Something needed to happen. But then we have my granny square blanket project, and as you might assume, every granny square that I complete for the said blanket, I get to fill in a box. Now, this actually hit a bit of a snag because 2 out of the 3 colors I was using were discontinued. I never knew I could experience crochet pain like that. But luckily I was able to find some skeins that other people were selling as they were doing yarn destashing, and so the project will be back on very soon, and I will definitely be filling in this journal and hopefully finishing this by the end of the year, ideally. We have my Yona of the Dawn favorite chapters, which were found in 14, 15, and 16, which was the Water Tribe arc. I ate this series up. I ate this arc up. It was my absolute favorite arc so far in the series, and I was so excited to finally have a page dedicated to Yona of the Dawn. I will probably do more pages if I come across chapters that I love as much as this one, and I'll definitely be making a page for Yona of the Dawn as a whole once I finish it. This is another one that I just love so much. These are actually my friend Mackenzie's stickers, and I love the color palette of this page so much. I love how shiny it is, and it was just so much fun to put together as well, and very satisfying. We have another gymnastics competition page for my state meet, as well as another Renaissance Festival, my hometown Renaissance Festival in Texas. I flew over from Florida to go visit, and I went with my parents, my brother, and a couple of my friends as well, and it was unsurprisingly a delightful time. I think this was my 6th year in a row going to Scarborough, and without fail, I just have the best time ever. I also got to celebrate Mother's Day while I was there. I took my mom out to see Devil Wears Prada 2, and I also got new tattoos, the main one being this compass tattoo, which is one of my absolute favorite tattoos, and I also got some of my old tattoos fixed up as well. Then we have my very first TBR jar page. My very first time ever doing the TBR jar was actually in May, but I forgot to make a page for it. So I decided June was the perfect month to start, because why not? I rewrote the prompts that I pulled, took a picture of said TBR jar, which is actually like TBR bowl, but I think it's fine. You get the general gist. And then I added all the book covers of books that I wanted to read in June. Did I read them all? No. Was I still satisfied with my reading in June? Yes, which you will see shortly here, another one of my favorite cover pages. I just love how gorgeous this page ended up turning out. And once again, as mentioned earlier, we have the Game of Thrones, A Clash of Kings page. Once again, does this format look familiar? It should, because I stick with what I know, you guys. Figure it out once, and then you don't have to do it again. I had a cute little trip to New York to see my favorite band, The Warning, and while I was there, I got to visit a art friend, Blair. We went around Central Park doodling, we went to the Met. It was just an amazing, amazing experience getting to hang out with her. And then, of course, the main reason for the trip was seeing The Warning. I put their set list here, which I love to do for any shows that I go to. And the fact that I got a physical ticket, I'm still reeling at, because I was standing in the crowd talking to someone else about how my digital ticket wouldn't work, and then it finally did, but the guy next to me said he had the same problem, and he ended up going to get like the physical tickets or something, and he had an extra. And I'm like, say less, can I please have it? And he gave it to me. And I was so excited because I love, for obvious reasons, having physical media to put into my scrapbook and into my journal. So you cannot imagine my delight when I got my hands on a physical ticket, especially because this venue is on a rooftop. So it's so cool to have a picture of the New York City skyline and then the venue itself. I read the Live Ship Trader series, and I wanted to make a page for it because up until the third book, it was one of my new favorite series, if we're being honest. And then the third book happened, which you can see, 2.5 stars, didn't really end well, but I really loved how this page turned out. I love a good story that takes place on boats and getting to use boat stickers and doodling some rope and such, and I love how this font turned out as well. Obviously inspired by the novels of the Elderling books. Love, love, love this page, and I definitely will be doing more series pages like this as I complete series that I enjoy or want to share my thoughts on. As you can tell throughout my journal, I don't find it necessary to make pages for every single book that I love or every single series that I read, mostly just the books and series that I really love and want to document my experiences or thoughts on. I had a trip up to Knoxville, Tennessee, and discovered that there's a place called Ancient Lore Village, which basically looks like a little hobbit village. And before my gymnastics competition, my friend and my mom got to go visit. We took beautiful photos, we hang out, we did archery, we did axe throwing. It was such a delightful experience, and I loved that they had a map that I was able to chop up and add to the page. Once again, physical media is superior. And then we have my nationals championship, which I am actually All-American National Champion of, which was so exciting. And I love, once again, they gave me a little lanyard so I could stick it in here. Once again, physical media for the win. I'm sick of digital everything, you guys. So sick of it. And then coming to my last couple of pages, we have my mid-year check-in. I wanted to make a page of all of my 5-star reads and realized that I only had 4. So I also made a page incorporated my 4.75 reads, and I also had 4 of those. So it just ended up working out perfectly that I was able to make a page featuring all 8 of them and filling in some space and running, of course, each month that I had said 5-star book. As you can tell, a lot of my favorite reads of the year I found very early on, and then since April, it's been a little hit or miss, but you know, we had a couple in June, so hopefully the second half of the year I can find even more 5-star reads. For my end of the year 5-star overview will be more full than just 4 books. And then coming to my last page, which is my second quarter of reading. Does this format look familiar? Because it should. I love these pages so much. They're one of my favorites to put together because 1, they're very simple, and 2, they look amazing. They look like I put so much effort into it, but honestly, the most amount of effort that I put into this page was just figuring out how to color coordinate and make the books look very like aesthetically pleasing. And seeing just an overview of all of the books that I read is very, very satisfying to me. That does wrap up all of the pages that I ended up creating throughout the beginning of 2026. My journal is full, my heart is full, and I cannot wait to continue journaling for the second half of the year and see what my journal ends up looking like then. But in the meantime, I will see you in the outro.
Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed seeing all of my pages. Maybe you gathered some inspiration for your own reading journal. Like I mentioned in the intro, there are just so many pages that I had so much fun putting together, so many memories I have associated with these pages, and I hope that you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I do really hope to see you in my next one. Toodles!